Hello, hello. Welcome to the 32nd episode of Binge Live. I'm your co-host, Jason Pramas of the Boston Institute for Nonprofit Journalism. Kind of mumbling that this week, but I got it out. And with me is who?
Hello, Chris Faraone. Are we
Yes.
supposed to introduce Matt first?
No, we can do that after we did. You say your thing. Yeah.
I just want to let everyone know, though, that my camera is not in reverse. The K is reversed. It stands for keep it legal, as in the marijuana repeal effort in Massachusetts. So I just so people and I'll explain all the other stuff later. But we are facing far, as you see, Belushi's face. The bottom of it is in the right direction.
Okay. So, and yes, our guest tonight is Matt Lee, or Matt L. of Libra FM, and we'll be talking about all things Libra FM tonight. But first, Matt, who are you? Let the folks know a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I'm Matt Lee. I live in the Boston area. My background's in open source software, free software. I've been doing that for what seems like forever, for about 30 years, something like that. And then for the last 17 years now, I've been running a website for music fans to, share what they're listening to and discover new music. And that's Libra FM.
Cool.
I think you gotta let me off the hook before, because let's just get. I've known you for how many years ago are those hack days now?
It's about 17 years, 16, 17 years. Yeah.
Wow.
It's been a while.
So, you you've always been a great friend and you've helped Binge on numerous occasions. But back in the day, you must have wrung your hands over. I was just gaga over everything I was looking at. Certainly, some of my most regrettable reporting was the celebration of Echo Nest, what became the brain of Spotify. But did you see the writing on the wall? Were you as much of you're kind of in certain circles, kind of a legendary skeptic, perhaps? But what were you thinking back then about the future of music discovery?
For me, it was a weird time because I just moved to the US maybe a year or so earlier than that, and I was looking for something to do. And Libra FM, based on kind of Last FM as it was, Audio Scrobbler as it was just being bought out by CBS at that moment in time. And so it went from being this independent thing to being CBS. And at the same time, a lot of the founders were leaving. So Music Hack Day was actually the last time a lot of those people were together. So I met all the founders of Last FM as they were basically leaving Last FM. And then I met you at the same time. And so, it was a weird time because I said to Jason yesterday, actually, people thought that I started Libra FM in response to CBS. And actually, I had no idea that was happening at the time. It was just kind of fortuitous that happened. And as of a month ago, maybe, they're now independent again. They are free of the Paramount conglomerate. So
wow.
That's an interesting
that's really interesting. It's not. I don't want to move into AI yet, but it is kind of. We're talking about CBS purchasing a music website, which is crazy. Now we're talking about acquisitions of a site like Free Press for tens of millions of dollars. But back then, music discovery. It's kind of interesting because it's not like the old format wars where somebody had to win, or else we're going to have 30 million formats. We could have had a couple of different things. Did you foresee a couple, having three players, right back to politics with two parties, or or am I being naive? What's the market share for Spotify, Apple Music, and Amazon? What's the
I think I read somewhere that it's something along the lines of 73% of music consumers are now using a streaming service, and of those two streaming services, I'm fairly sure it's majority Spotify, majority Apple Music, and then the rest of it is all kind of, certainly in the US, the rest of it is irrelevant almost, or it's very small numbers,
Crazy.
The thing about CBS too that's worth thinking about is, because CBS at the time, and CBS Records is a member of the RIAA, and so a big concern on people's behalf was, if I listen to a song that is not out yet, but has been leaked in some manner, and Last.fm puts that on my profile, am I going to get a knock on the door from the RIAA lawyers saying like, hey, where's that CD? Where's that MP3 file? And I don't think that ever happened, but that was certainly the concern.
And where do you fit in all this? Like, what's your niche been? What's your mission been? Through all these changing years in streaming, you've been at it for a long time. And what's your your core audience? Who are your fans?
Yeah, because Wikipedia their bot lists you as a music listening tracking service. Is that
right?
Is that accurate?
That's somewhat accurate. Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, and this is going to sound stupid, but I don't know who my users are, and I like that. I deliberately do not have analytics in anything like that. As far as I can basically put off having anything like that, I do that now. And we're going to get into this a little bit more in a minute, but these days with the scraping and stuff that's going on, I do use Cloudflare, and Cloudflare does give me at the free tier very minimal statistics, so I can see that a lot of my users are in the United States, but not all of them, and I can see that a lot of them are on Windows, which is surprising to me. I thought that, to be honest with you, I thought that most of my users were Linux users in the United States, and they're not. And now that probably has changed. I'm sure for certain that a lot of the earlier users were, because quite frankly, that's what the earlier users were, us, people making the site, and so it's surprising, I think, that's where we're at now. But at the same time, when the site started out, it was more about, finding Creative Commons freely licensed music and saying to people, well, hey, if you share your music in this manner, come to us and we will stream your music for you for free. We'll give you some extra tools and try to give you a bit of a step up compared to the major artists. Now, hosting lots and lots of music for streaming and for download was hard, and we had someone doing it for us in Germany, and then that server died, and there's no backup of that stuff, and so we just lost, all the things people were uploading, and as time went on, that became less and less part of the service that mattered, and so as of today, you cannot stream anything on Libre.fm, but you can, if you listen to music on your phone, your computer, your fridge, whatever have you, whatever you're listening to music on, you can report to us what you are listening to, and then from that we give you a nice profile. You can see trends on what you're listening to. One thing I pushed for recently is to see not just the ranking of users by the number of songs they listen to, but the ranking of them in terms of how many different artists they listen to in a week, which is, I think, actually more important than anything else, because looking at it from my own usage, some weeks I feel like I listen to New Order, Joy Division, Pulp, and Half Man, Half Biscuit, and that's about it. And they're all great bands, but there's more than 4 bands in the world, and so using it myself to try and find more, things that I like and I want to listen to, it's kind of nice.
Well, it's interesting because you're pulling, music information from Music Beans. Is that right? For specific
Brains,
songs
yeah.
and Music Brains. I'm sorry, Beans. God, it's funny because I just saw a video from England about a new flavor of Heinz beans, which is spelled with a Z on their label over there.
Oh, the pizza flavored ones, right?
Pizza flavored, yes,
Shrimp's
indeed.
YouTube channel. I saw that video yesterday. Yeah,
that's in my brain. So I saw. Apologies to Music Brains, and Music Brains also has Listen Brains. So if you do a couple clicks, you can often find through Listen Brains, the song you want to hear that you heard before, right? In a different place. You can learn more about the artist and stuff.
Yeah,
So,
Listen Brains is a similar service to Libre FM. So,
I was wondering, but they said they don't do it by individual.
Stop talking about it, Jason.
They said they don't do it by the individual, though. Is that they aspire to?
I don't actually know how they do it, because I have no hostility towards them at all. I think that we have a good cooperation and we kind of work together on some stuff, but I don't use Listen Brains in the same way that I don't really use Last.fm anymore,
Well, okay.
I try to use my own service as much as I can, and it does what it does. It doesn't do what it doesn't do. And I think the unique thing about Libre FM compared to anything else really that's out there is that there are very few websites, web services in this day and age that are run by one person.
Right.
I'm the only person working on this. If I get hit by a bus, it's over. If I'm sick, I don't answer the email for a few days, and some people are going to be like, I can't reset my password. What the hell? And I'm like, sorry, I was sick. But I make it very clear at the same time. It's me. I'm the only one running this.
With one key.
Right.
Right. It's nice though. People don't have to use their own names. They can use avatars, all that, and right. Also get an idea of what other people are doing. Especially, I was noting the weekly figure. Like for this last week, there's been almost 1.8 million,
right.
songs listed, and that tells me that there must be tens of thousands of active users and probably hundreds of thousands overall that have used it, have accounts.
There's about 400,000 people who have accounts, and I want to say that probably a good 25 to 35% of those people are somewhat active.
That's great.
I don't have the exact numbers. I could check. I don't really care.
I want to talk for a second about just the evil of certain streaming services. We hear so much about the YouTube algorithm leading us to murder, and I'm not saying it is a positive thing, but for me, one of the most aggravating things about Spotify in particular is, and I'm really a guy. I really love my vinyl, my CDs, but for I think Spotify sucks for discovery. It will, you can type in a name of an artist that you have 50 songs saved on. And it still won't. It'll still show you every asshole, pop artist that you never wanted to hear from with a similar name before it shows you actual, even verified artist that it should know. So I want to know, and I'm not. Again, we get into AI when we get into AI. Sure, we're halfway through. But
shortly.
What the fuck works? Why don't any of these services know? If they know so much about me, why don't they know anything about me? They don't recommend new art. I mean, I know the answer in part, but not on the technological side. They don't recommend the artists I am obviously listening to. Artists I listen to every day. When they put a new album out, I don't find out about it. I don't find out about their concerts. It's a fucking joke. For them, it's got to be more aggravating than Jason and I have that we can't reach our readers on Facebook. But it's just ludicrous. So what good do they do at all? What's going on here?
So I don't think Spotify is a good thing, to be blunt. I think Spotify is a bad thing in general. The fact that they have a free, no-cost tier, I think, kind of drives that problem, into the ground more, because it's, then if you're relying on a free tier, you're relying on advertising. You're going to rely on advertising the bands and the artists that are going to sell those ad dollars, and so you're going to start pushing stuff to people in the wrong way. The funny quote I always think about when I think about Spotify is that John Flansburgh from There Might Be Giants said that they spend more as a band on Spotify than they get from Spotify.
Wow.
And that's a band that's, on the cusp of top 40. They're a well-known act, they're touring and stuff and whatnot. They have many albums. If you're anything smaller than There Might Be Giants, which, I'm sure for a lot of people would be like a dream come true, how do you get anything out of Spotify? You're just wasting money, and they're now not even paying people. If you're below a certain threshold of streams, you don't get anything. They don't even pay you per stream anymore. It's just like,
that's
you're
the
not.
YouTube model right there. But I mean, I'm from the, it sucks for the artist, but and I am talking about the paid level. Anyway, I just think, I think customization, this is like a big. I know you have different aspects of your mission. Some remarkably. I love that it's the one-man show is a big part of your the banner that you raised. That's fantastic. But for me, I think that the customizability, a lot of these promises, I said recently to someone that I was hanging out at Music Act Days. I think I might have said 20 years ago, whatever it was, where it was I was using an app back then that someone had where when I was traveling a lot, where I could actually have music in every hip hop songs from every city that I was going to.
Right.
It would, like, draw me up these playlists. And you say it's crazy. You say that to somebody in 2026, and like, wow, that's like sounds really futuristic and awesome. It's like we had this 20 years ago. Like that's
Right.
like the electric car. It's crazy.
Well, that's what's great about it, right? I mean,
it must make your head explode, or maybe not anymore. I don't know.
this isn't about the algorithm, right? That's what Matt has said in different places, right? Like here, it's not the algorithm telling you what people are listening to. It's people providing their own lists of what they're listening to, and then when you aggregate that into stats, you can see what's popular, at least with the hundreds of thousands of people on Libra FM, right? Which is a very different and very 90s and early 2000s way of using this data, a very distributed way, right? It's not some.
And the other thing that I find kind of fascinating about it is that, you know, from what I've been able to glean from speaking to some of the heavier users of the site, is that for a lot of them, they never go to the website. So they report the data into the site, and they might look at their own profile once in a blue moon. But actually, for them, the fact that it kind of just keeps working in the background, and they know that like they can listen to some music and it'll appear on their profile. To them, a lot of them, that's it. That's what they want. They don't want to be served banner ads. They don't want to be, you know, the output of an algorithm telling them what's going to happen. Now, in terms of discovery for new music, I actually use Apple Music. I'm somewhat of a recent convert to Apple Music. I got a Mac a couple of years ago as my eyesight and hearing started to fail me, and I needed to have some of the features that Linux and open source software doesn't really have right now for accessibility. I kind of got into the Apple Music thing, and for that, I actually like it because it does actually know enough about my, you know, poor choice of 1970s and 1980s acts that I listen to constantly, and it will tell me, you know, it will, like, I think there was a new album by, there was a new Gorillaz album recently, but before that there was a new album by The Cure, things like that. We're just getting like, you know, like this thing is out, or, you know, and often in my case, it's a lot of re-releases, you know, so New Order have a re-release coming out soon, but it's like highlighting that, and it's like, hey, you're going to check out this triple album of New Order songs that's coming out soon, and they're playing, you know, if a band is playing near me, I can see that kind of. But that's kind of where I'm going with the site next, is really to start to harness, because Music Brains is a wonderful resource. Music Brains is a foundation, non-profit based in Spain. They have some wonderful resources, and essentially what Music Brains does is it provides a unique identification number, a big long string of numbers and letters for every single artist, every recording, every release, everything. So you can go through your vinyl collection and see, you know, like I have, you know, in just to speak about New Order for a second, you know, like you have the 1983 Blue Monday floppy disk, you know, like you have the UK version of that or versus the Italian version of that. Those are different things in Music Brains. And so it would be really cool if people could, you know, point to exactly what they're listening to. You know, right now, when someone listens to a song, I don't get that information. I typically get artist, song, album. And usually a streaming service flattens the album title down to just like, you know, Power, Corruption and Lies. Maybe I'll get 20th anniversary edition or something like that from Lucky. But usually you don't even get that. And so, you know, what I can report back to the user in terms of what they're listening to is only what I receive from their player or from their streaming service. And so, but it'd be, you know, there is stuff in Music Brains where they're trying to tie more of that together. So they have, for example, a list of links. They have links to all of the artists' fan pages, social media pages where you can buy stuff. They have links to websites where there are events and upcoming shows and all that kind of stuff. And so I want to start to build more and more of that into the site as, you know, as time goes on. But again, I'm doing this in my spare time. And so it's, yeah.
I mean, for me, quickly, the use case is that I've been listening to just, you know, kind of free and open streams for years. I never signed up for any service. And oftentimes you don't know what you're listening to. When I pump these streams through Libra FM, I can now see the songs I listen to. And if, you know, if I'm like, well, what did I listen to last weekend? There was this great song. It was like mid-afternoon. I can go find it. Right. That's one important thing. And then the other thing, as I said, I didn't say, as a 59-year-old, I keep coming back to this, like I'm definitely in the zone where you sort of start giving up on new music because there's just, number one, so much of it. And number two, you're not in places where you're going to know who those acts are and stuff. Plus, and we will now segue into AI. There's a lot of AI slot music, that's being just drenching the internet, in its spooge, and it's helpful to kind of have a good idea of what's what and who's doing what. And this, Libra FM does help with that. So I can go, oh, so this is some new stuff I haven't heard, seems popular. At least in Korea, you've had a lot of Korean users lately, you were telling me, Matt, and I noticed that. So let me check out the
fans. Yeah, the BTS fans had a bit of a falling out with Last FM last week. And so I've had a bunch more, a lot of big sign up in recent days of a lot of users, lots of BTS fans and K-pop fans. And it's been wonderful, quite frankly, because it's a different audience and people are coming to the site and they're asking me questions about things that I hadn't thought about in a long time. And so, I think that in the same way that I thought my users were predominantly the next users, I think actually having a bigger, a wider circle of people using the site is only going to improve things. And also, to be blunt, a lot of those new signups have given me a donation in the last few days. So actually, the usual meager amount that I make in a week in donations has gone up. Not retirement money, but groceries money, pay my phone bill money, that kind of thing. Which is nice. So it's nice to not have to dip into my savings when you're maintaining a public, piece of infrastructure. And that's how I kind of think of it at this point. This is public infrastructure.
Are there any, I wouldn't say commercial uses, but if you did want to lean into it, I was thinking, it's got to be a great place for people looking for independent music to license and stuff like that. I know that's not how you think, but what are some things over the years that you've met people and they're like, oh, it's great for this, and you hadn't really thought of it? And my other question, I don't know if this intersects with it, but are there ever issues with licensing that come up, as far as removals and this and that? You're one guy running it. How does
yeah, I'll speak to the second point first, if that makes sense. So never had a takedown request, but at the same time, all I'm listing is what you listened to. Right. People do, individuals do come along and they say especially with there's a really good plugin called Web Scrobbler, which you can attach to your browser. And then it will pump into Libra FM any videos you're watching on a bunch of different sites. Sometimes people will have that on, and then they'll go and watch a Family Guy video, or they'll watch a tutorial on how to make really good pancakes, and that's on their profile now, right? And so they're like, "Hey, I watched a bunch of stuff. Can you come and delete it?" And so, occasionally I'll have to hop into the database and delete some stuff for people.
But they didn't do anything
self-service. They can go in there and delete their own stuff. Say that again.
Oh, they did it by ripping. Okay, I got you. I understand.
They're just doing it because it's just playing. It's just reporting to me,
right?
Whatever they're listening to, wherever they're listening to it. And so, if that happens to be, watch, because a lot of people just watch free YouTube, and that's how they get their music, which I find quite fascinating. You can get, a pretty good. There was definitely a few months ago where I canceled Apple Music just to see what it would be like for a month, not having a paid streaming service. And I went back to Apple Music pretty quickly, but you can. If you have a YouTube account or an Amazon account.
No, I listen to metal on YouTube unpaid. Right. My Spotify account is literally separate. My kid has an account, and then I have only my underground hip hop, because I hate to say it, it's where 98% of anything I've ever wanted is there. It's beyond.
Yeah.
It's mind blowing. It's just, it lives in the deep. I don't believe a lot of that stuff's going to be on Spotify forever. So that's another story
right.
altogether. But
so one thing that I do use, which is separate to Apple Music, is a thing called iTunes Match, and that's actually quite a cool, weird thing. I don't know really why it still exists. I suspect that someone at Apple doesn't really realize it still exists. But basically, you pay about $25 a year, and you can upload 100,000, I think it is, of your own MP3s to the cloud through the
Really?
through the Apple Music, and they just store them for you. But also, if the song already exists, like in iTunes, like the iTunes store, they'll match it. So if you have like a crappy, cassette recording of Blue Monday, they'll match it to the high fidelity quality of the same recording.
Right.
And so, yeah, you can just have like a really cool, you can build your own record collection locally and then just sync it with the cloud and have it wherever you can have Apple Music.
I got really left behind, man. I've never owned an MP3, a single one. I own I own tens of thousands of records.
Right.
10,000 cassette tapes. I used to own tens of thousands of CDs. I sold most of those. I have hard drives full of music. I guess those are MP3s, right? But I've never. Those are backups. I've never accessed them. But but as far as like the way I use my music, I never had iPods or anything like that. I just went straight. So I got lost in the mix, and I know people who have great, and it scares the shit out of me. It really does. So.
Yeah, I mean, there's also, the issue of there's a lot of music that was released between like I think 2002 and 2007, which is kind of like when the iPod was big and then the iPod kind of faded out when the iPhone came out. But there's a lot of music released in that era that people bought on iTunes, and it exists on iPods that are in a desk drawer or in a closet or in an attic somewhere that they don't have access to, that they don't listen to. Think about all the music that came out in that era that's just kind of unheard of at this point, which is very strange to me.
That's why I mess with the old stuff, man. We always do a show and tell.
Yeah.
This is an old White House news report, but I'm all about the print stuff, dude.
That's very cool. Yeah, I mean, and like you've definitely you've turned me onto some really interesting print publications in the past, and it's wonderful.
Oh, I got some Warhammer magazines for you, by the way.
Oh,
there
very
you
cool.
go.
I have a stack of those right here. So,
White Dwarf.
Double show and
White
tell.
Dwarf. You can see how far behind I am in my hobby, though. These are still sealed. I haven't even unwrapped these yet. So.
Oh no, don't! You don't want to do that. You don't lose value.
I mean, it's modern White Dwarf. It's going to be useless in about 7 seconds because Games Workshop puts out too much stuff these days.
I prefer to use things anyway. I'm not in the don't unwrap things camp.
I'm not a fan of the. If you have a Star Wars figure, take it out of the box and play with it.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So let's jump. Move on to talking about the many problems of so-called AI when it comes to trying to run an independent website or Gen AI, if we're going to be fair, generative AI. So what's going on with Libra FM and AI, the AI giants, and all the harm they're causing?
Yeah, well, so Wikipedia mentions this a little bit, but beginning of last year, March of last year, I got laid off. And around that same time, I was really struggling to keep the site online because the increase in scraper bots was ridiculous. It was 99.9% of my traffic was just robots scraping things for no good reason. And so I had to make a hard choice. And for a while there, I was on the verge of just like packing it all in, quite frankly. I announced that the site was going into maintenance mode. That was going to be it. There were no more signups. And I kind of sort of gave me a bit of a time to think about things. But I kind of came to the conclusion that actually, like, you can do a bit of a deal with the devil, I guess, and for me that deal is Cloudflare. Cloudflare is a problematic company. They do some things that are good. They do some things that are bad. And I think they have far too much influence in general over the web because they are so prevalent. At the same time,
can I ask you a
service
question?
Like that?
Sorry,
Yeah, go
Matt,
ahead.
I just want, because I'm the dummy and I just need you to, like, I'm the one, like the guy at BINJ who doesn't understand any of this. They always have to explain to me.
Sure.
Why is it bad to have 1 million bots? We have the same problem. Of course, you've helped us with our website before.
Sure.
Why is that a nightmare? Just explain like the cost of why it costs so much. Is it your time and money cost? And then what does Cloudflare do? We use them as well.
Right. So, if you think of a website in very simple terms, like a ticket counter at a deli counter, right? So you take a number, you get called up, you go get your stuff, and what have you. These AI bots are basically, they're all coming in the front door at 9 a.m. when you open the store, and they're just taking as many tickets as they possibly can get, and they're all just standing there waiting in line constantly. And one of your legitimate people, a human being, comes along to try and use the website, and they can't get up to the counter because there's just a sea of bots in front of them. And each hit on a website, there is a tiny amount of compute that has to happen for that to happen, and there's a bit of bandwidth and what have you. But with a site like Libre FM, where it's database driven and it's constantly being refreshed with new information, caching that information is hard. Caching is one of the biggest problems in computer science. So what Cloudflare does is it kind of inserts itself between the web and my website. It's a proxy service. Ultimately, I think they call it a web application firewall. I mean, a lot of this is marketing. But ultimately, what Cloudflare does is when you go to the website, you might see one of those, click here if you're a human being things the first time you come to the site. The rate at which a bot can actually successfully do one of those with Cloudflare stuff is pretty low. Cloudflare is constantly changing their algorithm, and because they have such insight into the web, because they're on so many websites, they can find patterns and tricks and kind of get ahead of what's going on. At the same time, it's not great when you're pushing an open source message or a free software message on a site like Libre FM to rely on a proprietary service like Cloudflare. But at the same time, if I didn't have Cloudflare at this point in time, the site would be offline.
All right, cool.
And it's to the point where it's
a
million hits a day are just coming from bots.
Motherfucker.
So at one point, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, and you said for no good reason. I'm like, not to get so off track, but like, what are they doing with it? Because you might have some valuable information for somebody, right? I mean, it's not like they're scraping.
Sure. I mean, I think
what the fuck does scraping mean? They're taking what and putting it where? Like, is it helpful for anybody? Is this just a giant clusterfuck for no reason?
I think it's useful for people to see their listening habits, but I do not really see the point in a machine scraping it. To be blunt, I think that a lot of these scraping things are just scraping everything they possibly can.
Right.
We've seen that one of the lawsuits that's going on, I think, with Facebook, where they were torrenting like loads and loads and loads of books and things like that. Yep. It doesn't seem like they were doing that with any kind of like end goal or aim. They were just getting as much stuff as they possibly can and scraping all of it. And
it's like a fucking like a fourth grader discovering that you could return a can for 5 cents and scouring the neighborhood.
Effectively, right? It's 10 cents in Michigan, though, right? So like we should get a car full of cans and drive up there sometime.
They did that in Seinfeld way back when.
Right, exactly.
Well, we could do a whole thing on the bottle bill. That's a big fight in Massachusetts right now.
Yeah. True.
So I mean, for having the thing in place, by having Cloudflare in place, I can block bots. I can block illegitimate traffic. Is how I think about it, right? So Libre FM is a site for human beings. If you're a human being, come to the site, use the site as much as you can, do whatever you want to do, listen to all the music you like, and if the site stays up, great. But bots they're not human beings. They have no interest in interacting with the site in any meaningful way. They're not listening to music. They're just coming along and hammering as many pages as they can to steal information. And that's kind of how I feel about the whole, one of the biggest issues with Gen AI is that it's 100% built on stolen work. They've stolen every bit of open source software, every bit of art, every book, every picture, every blog post, every tweet, everything. They've stolen all of that, and now they're going to try and sell it back to people. It's just sickening. It's just disgusting,
Yeah, that's what's wiping out, news sites like ours at present, because they do want our content for their chatbots to use in answers that no longer really take people to our websites anymore of any, all kinds of websites, but particularly news websites. So we're seeing, colleagues losing traffic, like 90% of their traffic over this. With us, I don't think that web search, in particular Google search, was that much of our traffic, but certainly it's at least 60%. We've had trouble growing, right? Yeah. Because our news site, our website currently BINJ.News, is we rebranded last November because the
Right.
old brand, we had two separate websites. One was for Binge as an organization, and one was for our publication, which we formerly called Horizon Mass. We merged them together into one very simple brand, BINJ.News, and that's been working very well. But we know it's not working nearly as well as it would have worked, 5 or 10 years ago, right? And we know
Right. I
that we're
mean,
blocked.
15 years ago, I could set up a website like this and run it and maintain it. And I think you could not do what I'm doing now if you started out doing it today.
No.
Which is sad. But we should take a moment to acknowledge the fact that just how sad it is that Google, the search engine company who has a bunch of other products, managed to fuck up search so
Yes.
badly that people don't use, like, I haven't used Google search in years at this point because it's just so bad. DuckDuckGo is a bit better. And also DuckDuckGo allows you most of the time to go in and say, don't show me anything that's, so-called AI or what have you. But I actually, at this point, I'm using one of the many paid search engines out there now. I pay about $10 a month to use a search engine because it lets me dial it in exactly and be like, don't show me any of this stuff, and don't show me from this website or this website or this website. And able to get a better search out of it. But 15 years ago, that would have been Google.
Absolutely.
It's ludicrous, and
I mean, I was working for Lycos when Google came online, and within the first week, I was using it to run the politics area of Lycos behind the scenes. Right? It was clear to me. I'd been trying Metacrawler, if you remember that one.
I do.
Before that, because it looked at several different, search engines of the time. This is '98, and then Google comes online, and I'm like, zing! Like it was awesome for the first many years.
I think for a long time, Google really did have that kind of idealistic kind of feel about it, where it was, you did really feel like "Don't be evil" was a real thing, and that actually that they were there to benefit humanity by providing access to the world's information. And at some point, that went away.
I think there's a parallel, and help me complete this thought, guys. Where I think, and you work with the Internet Archive, right?
Right.
And with the Wayback Machine, which of course it was a great resource for providing access to the million paywalls out there, and not like people need to read it every day, but if you need for a court case or for a research paper, and you can find something. But from these greedy companies, right? These private, like the Boston Globes of the world, but now they've been out greedied, right? They found there's by the AI company, so now they have to, whether it's Cloudflare or whatever proprietary stuff they're using, where they have to block the shit of everything. Now even the Internet Archive can't take pictures of their sites, even just for these purposes. So it's kind of like I feel like in a sense that some of these resources, I don't know if you open source movement, that whatever's left of you, I know I have to diminish. I get it, right? Maybe in your world it seems like it's bigger, but I don't know how much is left. But is this fight just getting harder and harder and harder?
I think it is getting harder and harder and harder. The Internet Archive is under attack constantly. From third parties, from different state actors trying to take it down to, the actions of these large websites who don't want it to be there, to also to, the AI scrapers themselves, are trying to scrape the Internet Archive because it's a great resource to scrape, it's a mess. And, quite frankly, I don't know how much longer they will weather this storm because they are under threat constantly from lawsuits, from large publishing companies. There's a Hatchet, I think it is the lawsuit right now that's gonna, that's attacking them and stuff. And so, Libre FM, quite to be honest with you, makes, it manages to get by because I have good friends in the UK who started a hosting company, Bite Mark Hosting, back in the late 90s, and they host the site for free.
That's great.
And so really my operating costs are, backing things up and a few things like that, a few domain name registrations and what have you. The costs to run it are not huge. The biggest cost is my time.
Can support, Matt? Is that someone if people need like hosting, or is that only? Do they do only their own projects, or is that a company that people can support?
It's a private company. They host, if
They
you're
do.
looking for hosting in the UK, they do exist. They are, but they also host. They are responsible for hosting things like OpenStreetMap and My Society in the UK, and some of these pretty cool kind of civic-minded projects. So they do a lot of things. I think they host the Open Rights Group as well. So there are lots of cool non-profit stuff in the UK that gets supported by Bytemark. Internet Archive needs your money. InternetArchive.org. Give them $10 a month because it's the best library ticket you can get for $10 a month. Really is. You can get access to the world's information, and it's good, and it's fast, and it's free. So
they get that magazine stand too, the magazine rack, or whatever it is. Too.
They have so much cool stuff. At some point,
Crazy.
You got to go out there, man. You got to go out to California and see the building.
Absolutely, man.
Or Alexandria, right? The other server.
Right, yeah.
I mean, if people don't know, like I've mentioned this before, but I always come back to the original Rollerball movie, the good one, not the really crappy remake from like 2008 or whatever, but the one from mid 70s.
Yeah.
And there's a scene where the main character the world is run by corporations, and wow, that's so shocking. How could that ever happen? So it's pretty prescient in that regard. And this big star sports dude goes to this is very 70s. Like there's one computer center for the world, right? That's not exactly how things work now. But he goes there to Geneva, Switzerland, and there's this big, basically fish tank. It's a computer. It's a computer made out of water, and it's called Zero. And while he's talking to the kind of doddering old British scientist that's managing this AI, apparently, he's chastising it for losing the 14th century that morning, right? And this is very, very true on what's left of the internet now. For example, the successor company that owned TypePad, which was a place where folks could start websites and stuff and pay some money. Back in 2008, the original owners, when the big financial crash happened, they tried to help journalists by giving us free lifetime accounts, which was great. So I started a number of, websites when I needed them there. And then, like a year or two ago, the successor company just pulled the successor to the successor, just pulled the plug with no warning and then said that they'd warned everybody, and I lost really important websites. And if it wasn't for Internet Archive, they would not exist. There would be nothing left of them. Right. And this is some
Internet
major
Archive,
stuff.
but also the great work of people like Archive Team as well. Archive Team is Jason Scott and his people with Archive Team. They really do some great work. They find out that sites are going to be closing down. They go in there with their, they have scrapers, legitimate scrapers. They're going in there and they're saying, like TypePad's closing down. Let's find as many TypePad blogs as we can and get as much as we can before they're gone, because it's sad.
I think this is I'm gonna not tie everything with a bow, but I think honestly, I'm guilty of it myself. Though in the last several years, the lack of understanding of storage of finite storage is a lot of the stuff we're talking about goes back to that. Whether it's people not understanding what Jason and our team go through and you have helped dramatically. I mean, thanks to you.
Oh God, yeah.
Big Archive exists, frankly, and all that work, the one-on-one stuff that you had to do there. I think that lack of understanding, whether it's, and I'm not blaming readers, but just that the internet was this endless thing, and that journalism was going to happen for free on it, and it was like the stuff you were working, not to pander, but the stuff you were actually working toward. An open society right here. Everyone else just assumed was going to come and they were going to benefit from it and put nothing into it. So, but what are some resources that besides your own that you still like, that you still enjoy, that are still out there? There is the Internet Archive. What are some things?
Well, I'm wearing a T-shirt right now. You can see this T-shirt. This is the T-shirt for Indie Web Camp. Indie Web Camp is indieweb.org. And it's a little nonprofit that they organize events around the world We have events on the East Coast. It's a Zoom type event right now since the pandemic. But if people in the Boston area want to get together and have an in-person meeting, I would love to make that happen.
Oh, cool.
And Jason, I'm signing you up right now to come to the meeting. So now
Please do. I love that stuff.
We have 2 of us. So great.
Yay.
But yeah, I mean, internet. So there is still a little bit of hope out there. I feel like there are tools like Mastodon, the Social Web Foundation.
We use it.
A good one.
We use it. Oh, Social Web Foundation.
It's a wonderful resource. Internet Archive team. And the Internet Archive really helped Libre FM in the early days when I didn't have much. The hosting I had at the time was I was paying for it myself. I ran into Brewster Kahle at an event at MIT, and I said, "Hey, I'm doing this thing, and I need some hosting." And he said, "Oh, well, just email this guy, and he'll hook you up." And I emailed the guy, and 3 days later, I had 3 dedicated servers in Redwood City, just online. Here you go, bunch of RAM, bunch of disk. But this is the problem. Part of the problem we're facing now is that these scraping companies, these Gen AI companies, these whatever you want to call them, companies, are driving the price of RAM up, the price of storage up exponentially. Apple just put their prices up on everything because Apple can't weather the storm anymore. Now, if a $1 trillion company cannot weather the storm of a RAM increase and a storage increase, how do you expect the world, like the people of like the TypePads of the world, the Libre FMs of the world, to be able to weather this storm too? It's my backup service in Geneva just had to raise their prices. I luckily just paid for 2 years of service, but they had to raise their prices by about a third. Everything is just crazy expensive right now for disks and RAM, and so is that
a flex? Is that a flex in the like coder world? Like my backup server in Geneva, dog.
Well, it's actually because my so Libre FM is hosted in York and in Manchester in the UK. So the data centers are actually in the UK. So I picked the place that was closer to Manchester when it came to picking up the backup service. But but Libre FM is cooled. I will say it is cooled by the natural wind of York, which I think is kind of cool too.
That is cool. Wow.
The building that they hosted in is actually like custom built. It's pretty sweet. Pretty cool.
A bit hotter recently, and we hope that doesn't affect things the way that the rising heat in Europe is affecting the nuclear power plants in France, for example. So they can't run properly, which just adds to the crisis over there as people, number one, don't have air conditioners. And then if they go buy them, there won't be power for them. Hooray. So similarly, we hope that the servers aren't affected.
People are dying of heat in Europe. On a crazy scale, it's no good, But don't forget, climate change is a myth, right? So that's what we've been told.
Yeah, so some idiots tell us that know nothing. But one more thing, which was as a long-time and well-known technologist, would you agree that the AI bubble, as it's very commonly been called for quite some time now, for over a year, writ large, is a real thing, and that it's on the verge of bursting, probably taking the overall economy with it in a conflagration that will be at least as bad as 2008 financially for the planet and therefore for regular people like us. But then it may, do you think it will provide any space, should that happen somehow, for a resurgence of people with a very democratic-minded view, small d folks, to how a resource like the internet should be running? You think movements for free software, et cetera, and free hardware for that matter, will emerge again?
I hope so, right? I do think it has to pop at some point and it has to burst. And I hope that really what this can teach all of us is that what we need is lots and lots and lots of small websites and lots and lots and lots of different providers of things. So we shouldn't all use Google or Microsoft for our email. We shouldn't rely on Amazon.com to host all the websites in the world, right?
AWS, folks, is their giant server service.
It's wonderful. I mean, there are browser plugins you can install that will block any Amazon website. I'm not saying you should practically use that, but I think you should try it for an afternoon and see how just ridiculous it is that you cannot. But all these sites are hosted by a handful of people. So make a website. There's an event coming up soon, a global event called HTML Day. There's an event happening in the Boston area. I would advise everyone to go ahead, look for that on a search engine. Hopefully you can find it. HTML Day, come along. I'll be there. Make a web page. I'll be there. I'll offer you I've been making web pages now for, how old am I? Very old. 35, I want to say 33, 34 years of HTML experience. I'll be there. I'll have you make a web page. I'll teach you the basics. We'll get a page. We'll make a website. And you can start to take a little bit of control back from,
And Matt, any recommendation for where people might start such a web page that isn't just on one of these major companies that are doing not good things,
Yes.
kind of run everything?
neocities.org.
Let's put that up.
NEOCITIES.org. It is like GeoCities, but it's new. It's NeoCities. It's free of charge to use. They have a very generous $5 a month plan. $5 a month gets you, I think, some very large amount of storage. Another one, of course, is nearlyfreespeech.net.
I know them, yeah.
Which Dig Boston is now hosted on.
That's why I know them.
Nearlyfreespeech.net. You can get a website for a quarter. That's the deal. They charge you as little as possible. I'd say look at those two things, and buy a domain name. Everyone should have their own domain name. Very importantly, I think. And porkbun.com is a great place to buy domain names. They're cheap. You can buy one for about $10. And so I would say also,
I use Gandhi, which I think you recommended, but it gets expensive.
Gandhi was bought out, I think, by private equity a couple of years ago. They jacked the prices up overnight.
Nobody called to tell me. I lost half my websites.
I'm sorry, man. We've got to hang out more,
It does. It certainly doesn't function
right? It's forced us to not hang out so much,
Yeah, I mean, me and Matt are hanging out. It's good.
I love it. Did they kept the whole impossible to fucking use, not to keep it real retro, but just to not spend a single dollar, I suppose. Because God, did they make it hard to use that?
Right. If you want a completely free of charge website today, neocities.org will get you set up and it'll get you started.
Cool.
So come to HTML Day around the world. Get a NeoCities account. Start to do and look at indieweb.org too. Indieweb.org will get you in the right direction. You can go there. You can. But what I want to do, and Chris, I think you'll appreciate this, is you remember those old photographs you'd see of the late 70s in England, and it was like, learn these 3 chords and start a punk band.
Yeah.
I want do these 3 steps and have a fucking website.
All right, I'm down, dude. I love
it.
Chip, we're going to be doing an episode about Chip Burley, who is on the original Binge board and just a great writer and reporter, editor, researcher, and he had like a million. Maybe I'll try to find some of them. He used to just sit around all text websites. He's early. He everything that we have with Trump, he had been writing about for decades. A lot of people purport to say that Chip was the real deal. I mean, people in that field reference him, and there's I think a lot of them are probably still floating around out there. But yeah, I get it. I'm with it, man. I'm just I'm science dumb. I really am.
Yeah.
Thanks to guys like you for keeping us for keeping me in business, man. Frankly, and and once we're all back to printing on printing presses, I'll pay it forward to everybody who took care of me in the digital era. I have 100,000 magazines to keep everyone busy for the rest of eternity as you sit around campfires smoking joints.
Yeah, so I would say if you can do one thing, which is just go to Libra.fm and sign up for an account and shoot me an email, support@Libra.fm. And I answer all my own email. So if you're emailing me too much and the site's down, that's why. I can only do one thing at once. Keep the site online or answer your email, so. I'm looking for a job right now, as Chris has got, as we've got flashing up on the screen here. So I am looking for a job right now too. So you can go to the website and you can find me there too.
So actually, support@librafm.org. Yes.
Libra.fm.
Libra. No, I had it right the first time. All right.
Yeah.
And there we go. hire Matt,
There we
and
go.
that's how you connect directly with Matt as opposed to going through us as intermediaries. So,
Perfect.
Matt Lee of Libra FM, this has been awesome. We will, of course, have you on again when
Love
all
to come on
ever
whenever you want
matters
to have you on. Talk about technology
tech
stuff
come up.
and
Yeah.
fireworks outside my house right now, apparently. So
Oh yeah, that's right. It is tonight, but it's like kind of hot and sticky. So yeah, although that is on point for the season, I guess. Tomorrow and the next day are not. But anyway, it's been great having you, Matt, and we will be sure to have you back soon.
take care, everyone.
Folks, we'll be back, next probably Tuesday. I'll be sort of on vacation again, but also sort of not. So with that.